where magical bedtime stories come to life every night. Subscribe now, so you'll never miss a new tale to help you drift off gently and fill your dreams with wonder. Tonight, you're invited on a special journey, a story that will transport you to the distant past and gently unravel old myths about medieval life. Settle in, wrap yourself in something warm, and let the day fade away. Outside, the city grows quiet, but together we'll open a door to a world where care, kindness, and everyday rituals lie at the heart of daily life. I wish you a soothing listen and the sweetest dreams. The sun's first light brushed the rooftops of Avignon with gold, sending long shadows fleeing into cobbled alleys and awakening 1,000 lives within the city's ancient walls. Already, the air was alive with soft commotion, the clatter of hooves as the baker's boy hurried with a fresh cart, the soft patter of children rushing with water jugs, and drifting above it all, the warm scent of bread mingled with the sharper herbal fragrances of soap and lavender. To walk those streets was to walk through a world both familiar and profoundly different from our own. It was easy, looking back through the veil of centuries, to imagine only squalor and filth, to conjure images of peasants forever mired in dirt and nobles hunched in gloomy castles, indifferent to the grime of their world. But the truth, hidden in the details of daily life, tells another story, one where water, soap, and 1,000 quiet rituals wove together to form the very fabric of the Middle Ages. Isabeau, the daughter of a well-known bathkeeper, began her day before dawn. In the gentle pre-dawn darkness, she would rinse her hands and face in cool water drawn from the family's own well, careful to scrub behind her ears, as her mother always insisted. They were neither rich nor poor, but theirs was a house in which cleanliness was a source of pride, a boundary between dignity and squalor, as vital in its way as the midday meal. Outside her window, the world was coming to life. Her younger brothers, half-dressed and rubbing sleep from their eyes, jostled for the basin, eager to be first to the market on such a promising spring morning. Their clothes, faded but well maintained, had been washed the day before and now carried a faint trace of rosemary. Isabeau's mother herself had spent the evening scrubbing them with homemade lye soap animal fat, carefully rendered and blended with ash, then scented with the lavender bundles that hung drying from the rafters. Even now, the scent clung to Isabeau's fingers. Contrary to centuries of rumor, her family and most others knew cleanliness was not a mere luxury. City ordinances required the scrubbing of thresholds and regular disposal of waste. Neighbors paid careful attention to one another's manners and visible tidiness. No one wanted the reputation of slovenliness, which would not only bring social shame, but might also provoke suspicion of illness, or worse, of moral failing. On that particular morning, as the sun pushed golden fingers further over the city, Isabeau prepared herself for work. Their public bathhouse, a modest but respectable establishment along the Rue de l'Or, had served merchants, nobles, and pilgrims alike for nearly a generation. There, men and women came on separate days, as was customary, to immerse themselves in warmth and steam, to cleanse the body and soothe the mind. Inside the bathhouse, the walls gleamed. Every surface had been swept and scrubbed, with water heated over great fires. The bathing tubs, large for those with coin, small for those of lesser means, were lined with clean linens that her mother had boiled, beaten, and dried in the sun. Baskets of soap, thick and pale, stood ready, each loaf cut into hand-sized pieces. In the corners, bunches of herbs hung in the humid air, rosemary and sage to purify, chamomile to calm. Isabeau herself believed, as her grandmother had before her, that there was something holy in these daily labors. Cleanliness had long been tied to virtue, to the respect owed God, one's neighbors, and oneself. She recalled lessons from church, how monks cleansed their hands before every meal, how the sisters at the convent insisted on regular bathing, how even the poorest widow found means to fetch water to scrub her children's faces each morning. The mood in the bathhouse changed with the seasons and the workings of the city. On market days, laughter echoed as women bathed before selling their husbands' wares. On holidays, noblemen retreated to private booths attended by servants. Winter brought the shivering and the sick. Isabeau would ladle water from steaming cauldrons, sometimes adding lavender or juniper to drive out coughs and chills. Her father, a practical man, tended the bathhouse's small garden, gathering mint and rosemary, not only for scent, but also for their rumored powers against lice and other ills. Rumors from distant cities reached their ears too. Travelers brought word of the grand bathhouses in Paris, some as splendid as the old Roman thermae, with mosaics, fountains, and separate halls for sweating, soaking, and cooling off. There, as in Avignon, the bathhouses were places not just for cleansing, but for conversation, negotiation, even the murmurings of love. Isabeau's father once joked that more proposals were made in the privacy of a hot bath than within the stone walls of the city's grandest cathedral. Small rituals shaped each visit. First, the washing of hands and face, a gesture of greeting and respect. Then undressing, folding clothes neatly, and submitting to a brisk scrub from an attendant, if one could afford it. Water was poured, sometimes with a dash of vinegar to ward off pests, or with elderflower water for those troubled by inflammation of the skin. Afterward came the combing of hair wooden or horn combs, their teeth wide, designed to untangle and clear away what the soap had loosened. The bathhouse was busy at all hours, but its rules were strict. Noise was kept to a gentle hum, and no one lingered indecently. The water was changed regularly, the linens boiled and scalded, the floors swept not just free of dirt, but scattered with new rushes, freshened with dried wildflowers when in season. Even the air was cared for. Her mother would burn rosemary branches and sweet woodruff, the scented smoke working its way into every corner, believed to cleanse and revitalize. Outside, families carried on their own practices. City and village alike, most people washed in basins of rainwater or by the riverside. Children bathed under watchful eyes when spring brought warmth, and whole households would turn out for the labor of laundry, the sound of stones and laughter echoing along the banks. Privies were common in wealthier homes, but even the poorest did their best to keep the filth away from their doorsteps out of pride and for fear of attracting vermin or disease. Clothing, too, was a source of careful attention. Linen undergarments and woolen tunics were scrubbed and sun-dried as often as possible. The sun's rays, it was generally believed, were a natural purifier, and so long as the weather held, garments would be hung high on racks or strung across narrow streets. The fluttering fabric, a sign of order and diligence. For the truly wealthy, no expense was spared. Bathing was often accompanied by servants who brought warm towels and bowls of scented water, rituals of anointing with oils rose, lavender, or the precious attar of violets. For those who could afford such luxuries were a point of pride and demonstration of refinement. The monasteries stood as models of all things orderly and clean. Within their stone walls, the monks tended vast gardens and ingenious aqueducts, channeling clear water from distant springs. Dotted throughout the cloisters were lavers wide, shallow basins where the brothers washed hands, arms, and faces before meals and prayers. In the dormitories, sheets and blankets were aired and beaten regularly, washed whenever possible, especially if illness threatened. Religious doctrine itself encouraged cleanliness. Not only did the writings of saints and scholars speak of physical purity as a mirror to the soul, but even practical advice on the dangers of lice, the need for clean feet, the cleansing of wounds was passed down from scriptorium to schoolroom. Medical texts, often copied laboriously by hand, advised frequent washing and cautioned against the dangers of unhygienic habits. Even in times of plague or war, the impulse to clean, to clear away the physical evidence of suffering, was strong. For all their diligence, there were of course times when circumstances defeated even the most rigorous routines. Siege, famine, or pestilence could send bathhouses into disrepair, leave rivers fouled, and homes shuttered in fear. Yet such episodes were exceptions, not the rule. It was later ages, looking back with a mixture of condescension and forgetfulness, that wove a permanent shroud of dirt over the memory of medieval men and women. But in every generation, there were those like Isabeau and her family proud keepers of tradition, who insisted upon the dignity of clean skin, fresh linen, fragrant herbs, and the communal joys of a well-kept bath. Their days were shaped by a rhythm of care, a cycle that joined body, spirit, and community, making them as recognizably human in their hopes and habits as any who followed. And so it was, with the city waking around her and the morning's labors yet ahead, that Isabeau greeted her first customer, a tired carter who, though weary, smiled at the familiar scents and the promise of hot water in cold weather. For a coin, she would draw the bath. For a word of kindness, she would tell him news. And for her family, she would keep alive the truth that, beneath the myths, medieval people cherished a cleanliness of life all their own. The carter's shoulders slumped with fatigue, but when he lowered himself into the steaming tub, heated just moments before by one of Isabeau's little brothers, a slow smile crept onto his face. Steam rose in gentle plumes, carrying not just the bite of lice soap, but a handful of marjoram and thyme snipped from pots by the window. Isabeau knelt on the cool flagstones to offer a wooden ladle of clean water for rinsing and exchanged a few words about the health of his horses, which, as any bathkeeper knows, always comes before the health of their drivers. The rhythm of the bathhouse was as steady as the city bells. As soon as one room emptied, another filled. Linens were wrung and hung to dry, tubs scrubbed and refilled, floors wiped with fresh water to gather splashes, and stray mud tracked in from the streets. Isabeau's mother, tall and sure-handed, kept careful accounts of payments, knowing the value of every halfpenny brought by scholars, tailors, even visiting clergy who slipped in at dusk, hoping to avoid the gossips at the market. After the carter left, Isabeau poured out the used water into the garden behind their house. Another daily task. Wastewater never lingered long. It could sour the air or, worse, draw flies to the windowsills. Across Avignon, city rules required all bathkeepers and inn owners to dispose of waste well outside public ways, and in the hot months, to douse thresholds with rosemary vinegar. The city's pride depended on such unseen labors. Life outside the walls throbbed with its own cycles of cleanliness. In the winding lanes of vineyards and olive groves, entire families made a festival of wash day. Children would strip down to their shifts at the riverside, where their mothers, sleeves rolled high and arms strong from labor, battered linen and wool with wooden paddles on smooth stones. The riverbanks sparkled with the movement of water in sun and with laughter that, for a morning, eclipsed the count of chores. Sometimes, travelers from afar, a Jew from the city's ancient quarter, a Moorish physician visiting from across the sea, even an English envoy in dusty boots, would seek out Isabeau's house. They brought stories of customs strange and familiar: Sicilian babes washed in orange blossom water, Moorish women who plaited their hair with cinnamon and cardamom, the scents clinging long after a bath. Even the Norse traders who pushed upriver marveled at Avignon's almost Mediterranean passion for cleanliness, noting with surprise that the poorest had at least a basin and rag for scrubbing feet before supper. Amongst the townspeople, little rivalries flickered into life. The dyers, hands forever stained with woad and madder, claimed that their long soaks in vats left them cleaner than the glove makers, who endlessly scrubbed raw hides before tanning. The baker's wife, who washed daily before dawn, sniffed pointedly at the fishmongers, whose close work with scales and brine did not always lend itself to sweet-smelling cloaks. But all agreed that unwashed children would never be sent to school, nor dirty aprons worn to vespers. The abbeys and priories outside the city's heart set the season's calendar too. On feast days, Isabeau would watch from her window as processions of monks walked to the river, each clutching a towel and small satchel of soap. The air filled with the notes of chant and the soft rustle of habits. The monks' discipline was legendary. Their washing was methodical. Hands first, then face, then the feet a mirror. Isabeau sometimes thought of the way their prayers sculpted the day from darkness into light. Within the town, Isabeau's friends observed their own household rituals. Margot, whose father was a candle maker, scrubbed the floors every third day and hung fragrant rushes on the lintel to mask the tang of tallow. She taught her younger sisters to make soap by layering fat and lye in wooden barrels, a skill their mother prized more highly than embroidery or song. In the midst of winter, the rush smells mixed with the bitter note of wood smoke, yet never with the stench of rot. These small rituals, repeated 100 times a year, shaped the unseen architecture of decency. Isabeau recalled with a gentle smile how her grandmother, old and nearly blind in her last years, kept her dignity with a ritual of morning washing. "You cannot greet the Virgin with hands that show yesterday's bread," she would scold, even when her fingers trembled too much to fill her own basin. Such customs, at first rooted in faith, grew into habits that outlasted sermons and priests. In Isabeau's world, the boundary between purity of soul and body blurred like steam on a cool window. Tales filtered in from the countryside, where clean water sometimes grew scarce in harsh summers. There, people relied on rain barrels, shared among neighbors, and in the rare years when drought visited, quarrels broke out over the order in which households could bathe. Still, even on those meanest farms, the weekly washing of faces, hands, and hair was observed with quiet pride. On holidays, they gathered wild mint and valerian to scatter upon floors, making the air sweet for guests and angels alike. None were perfect. There were always those who neglected their duties, whose lives or luck kept them from daily washing. But such souls were the object of whispered concern, not envy. Children told stories of the dirty Nicholas, who wandered the alleys, hair matted and feet cracked, and mothers threatened misbehaving little ones with the warning, "Do you wish to end up like poor Nicholas, with lice for neighbors?" By midday, the alleys bustled with children and water bearers, with the sweep of broom rugs beaten on sunny walls. The city was as alive with the pursuit of order as with trade and song. Isabeau's father, a man of patient temper, sometimes treated minor wounds and sores for the bathhouse's poorer customers. For in addition to cleanliness, the art of healing required water, steam, and caution. He scrubbed his tools with boiled water and wiped benches down religiously, muttering prayers to saints whose names had faded on crumbling parchments. Wordless wisdom, handed down by healers and midwives, stressed that only the very desperate or mad would let a wound fester beneath a crust of dirt. In the afternoons, when sunlight carved golden paths across flagstones, Isabeau would reward herself with a walk through the market. She marveled at the scented goods available to those with coin. Pomanders filled with crushed rose petals, small cloth sachets of orris root, even imported jars of violet-scented oil for the truly extravagant. A wealthy merchant's daughter, passing by, would sometimes dab a lace handkerchief with essence of rosemary, setting the trend for other hopefuls in her circle. Isabeau, content with the honest scent of soap and river water, took silent pride in the well-kept hands and hair that drew approving glances from neighbors. Evenings summoned their own duties. Before supper, the younger children washed again, rinsing dusty feet and sticky faces. The elder sisters set about boiling the day's used linens. Isabeau's mother declared, as she always did, "No child comes to my table dirty," echoing rules as old as memory. Night brought a hush to the city. The bathhouse stilled at last, but left clean and ready for the next dawn. The world slept beneath the protective hush of routine, the water basins waiting, rushes on the floor releasing their scent, combs and tubs ready for tomorrow's work. Sometimes, Isabeau would lie awake, listening to the distant chime of a monastery bell, grateful for the order that marked her days as surely as the passage of sun and shadow. As spring wore into summer, strangers came and went, and the bathhouse hummed with gossip and laughter. Some said that in Great Paris, the king himself commanded weekly baths for his courtiers. Others repeated tales heard at the ports of Marseille, sailors who rinsed themselves in brine after landside sojourns, city ladies who bathed in goat's milk, nobles who feuded over the scenting of public baths. Despite these rumors and fashions, Isabeau's own conviction never wavered. Cleanliness, she saw daily, was not a matter of luxury or idle wealth. It was a covenant made with self, family, and the world, a promise that, even in the humblest corner, a measure of dignity and order would prevail. The lives of medieval people were neither squalid nor indifferent to health and scent. In the press of work, the ritual of washing became its own small song, and in each drop of water, Isabeau knew the story of her city was being quietly, beautifully written. The languid days of midsummer brought with them the festival of St. John. In Avignon, as in many cities, it was a time of community revelry, a night when fires were lit, Songs were sung, and neighbors gathered in the open squares. Boys leapt the flames for luck, while young girls made flower wreaths to float upon the river. For Isabeau and her family, preparation for the festivities was as important as the celebration itself. In the bathhouse, every corner was scoured, swept, and laid with bundles of fresh-cut sweet grass. Isabeau spent the morning collecting buckets of water from the city well, her arms trembling under the weight. Her mother supervised the boiling of linens, pouring the steaming water over white sheets and tunics, then scrubbing them by hand and laying them over hedgerows to dry in the heat. Even the youngest children had a part. Little Pierre and Luc ferried piles of damp rushes from the bathhouse floor to the compost heap, making space for new ones perfumed with chamomile and basil. There was laughter in this work, a kind of pride that came from more than just habit. Each act of cleansing, each careful touch, was an offering, not just to the saints and neighbors, but to themselves. Isabeau watched as her mother tested the water's heat for rinsing, recalling lessons both practical and unspoken about the boundaries between filth and well-being. Before the festival, her brothers washed from head to foot, and Isabeau herself helped to braid their hair, running a comb through dark strands before tucking wild marjoram behind each ear. When the townsfolk assembled at dusk, they carried little traces of these rituals with them. Even in a crowd thick with humanity, there was little sense of the squalor so many generations would later imagine. Perfumed garlands hung from women's wrists, coins glinted on oiled skin. The patchwork of freshly laundered garments caught sun and lamplight alike. Some children, their faces pink with scrubbing, chased fireflies among the stones, while elders shared news and gossip by the warmth of the communal blaze. It was well known that on special days such as these, those who could afford the bath came clean and shining, while the poorest did whatever was possible, dipping hands, feet, and faces into communal fountains or carrying buckets to the silence of the alleys. A shared sense of decency did not always eradicate poverty, but it offered moments of respite, a softening of the world's harshness with ritual and effort. The months rolled forward as summer waned to autumn, and with the harvest came its own round of labor and cleansing. Isabeau's father took the boys to the fields, but not before his wife insisted on their weekly wash. Back at home, Isabeau helped her mother prepare herbal infusions to treat tired arms and scratched knees, a little comfrey for bruises, a poultice of honey and thyme for cuts. Each household in Avignon, and indeed across most of Christendom, kept such simple remedies close. Clean water, a strip of boiled linen, a careful hand. These things, handed down through generations, were their first defense against life's everyday injuries. On market days, the city filled with foreign voices and unfamiliar ways. Flemish traders set up near the wool merchants, their bright clothing and curious accents drawing stares. The smell of roasting meats competed with the musk of animal pens, garlic, and the sweet tang of dried fruit. Yet even among this tumult, there was order. Regulations imposed by the city fathers forbade animals from wandering unattended near wells or fountains. Butchers washed their tiled shops daily, and bakers aired out their quarters, lest the scent of old dough take hold. The rules weren't always followed so strictly, and the richer neighborhoods kept to higher standards than the poorer ones. But the city strove, as people everywhere do, to keep at bay the sicknesses and calamities often brought on by neglect. From time to time, plagues and pestilence swept through, challenging the resolve of even the most diligent. During such times, Isabeau saw doors marked with chalk, the sick isolated, and their homes scrubbed by those brave enough or desperate enough to risk contagion. The bathhouse sometimes closed for weeks on end, its tubs scrubbed with lye and vinegar in hopes of banishing the miasmas believed to carry illness. These outbreaks filled Isabeau with both fear and wonder-fear of the invisible dangers that could slip in through windows and doors, but wonder at how quickly the city could unite when threatened. People boiled their clothes more frequently, washed hands with vinegar, and burned sage and juniper at every hearth. She listened, wide-eyed, as her father recalled the teachings of learned monks who insisted that health began in the skin, in the keeping of the air and body free of filth. Through the years, Isabeau saw how new knowledge mingled with old wisdom. Traveling physicians arrived with novel tinctures and theories. Apothecaries sold powders for whitening teeth or mixtures to perfume breath, each claiming to remove not just foul odors, but the very seeds of disease. Among the nobility, fashions came and went. Some years, it was the rage to bathe twice a week with elaborate oils. Other times, a new superstition might prompt a temporary withdrawal from the public baths. But beneath these fleeting trends, the fundamentals endured. Water, heat, lye, and air. These were the elements of cleanliness, available in every household that strove for them. Isabeau herself became known for her skill at making soap, learning to balance fat and ash, to blend sweet marjoram, or a little dried orange peel for a better scent. By the time she was old enough to run the bathhouse alone, she could tell from a glance whether the water was hot enough, whether a linen had been rinsed clean, whether a new apprentice had truly swept the rushes. With age came small aches and the comfort of routine. Her brothers took over the carrying of water and tending of fires. Her mother faded away as the years rolled on. And eventually, Isabeau marveled at the sight of her own hand strong, cracked in winter, but always clean. Sometimes, when the work was done and dusk had gathered her neighbors homeward, she would sit on the bathhouse steps and gaze across the rooftops. Lost in thought, she wondered how many days had followed this pattern before she was born. How many more would after she was gone? The world beyond Avignon would change. Perhaps, she thought, people would one day forget or laugh at these rituals. Yet she also believed that the memory of warmth, of water and effort, of decency and care would endure in some small way in every life lived afterward, no matter how distant. And beneath the quiet stars, as the city exhaled and dreamed, Isabeau felt the story of her days, her clean hands, her fragrant bathhouse, her long labor among friends and family woven into the quiet, persistent music of history, waiting for another dawn. With winter crept in the mists from the river, curling through the city's streets and pressing against shuttered windows. The morning light came late and thin, and in its chill, the signs of careful routine sharpened. It was now, in the hard months, that the true worth of the bathhouse and the wisdom passed down in Isabeau's family became clearest. On each frosty morning, Isabeau would rise while the rooftops still glinted with hoarfrost, her breath soft clouds in the gloom. Water from the well bit at her fingers with icy teeth, yet she did not skip her careful washing. Her little brothers shuffled in beside her, gritting their teeth through the cold splash, nudged by both motherly encouragement and pride. for each knew that a clean face, even in the darkest season, marked the difference between diligence and neglect. Within the home, preparations redoubled, the hearth always alive with the low crackle of kindling, pots of water slowly warming for small necessities, a hand washed here, a foot there. The woolen cloaks and linen shirts that had endured harvest work were boiled, mended, hung to dry in the smoky heat above the fire. Herbs and summer's last lavender, long since picked and tied in bunches, hung overhead, their fragrance coaxed by warmth through the small rooms. Isabeau and her mother would tuck sprigs of rosemary between the clean linens, while even the boys learned to scatter dried juniper on the hearth to sweeten the air. Bathing itself became rarer in winter, but by no means forgotten. The bathhouse, when the city wind howled down the alleys, became a beacon. People queued at the door, some shivering, others already rosy from their walk, their faces set in expectation. On the busiest days, Isabeau had to take the role of host and keeper, directing customers to warming rooms or offering hot mulled wine as they awaited their turn. The great copper cauldrons never left the fires. Steam curled in lazy ribbons beneath the beams, and on very cold nights, the windows frosted in intricate lace so that inside was a world apart, warm, fragrant, alive with laughter and gentle conversation. Attendants moved always, ferrying buckets, brisk in their work, yet never harsh. Each towel, heated by the flames, was a comfort offered not just to the body, but the spirit. Isabeau would sometimes pause in her own rush, watching the old, the tired, and the solitary relax into sleep as the warmth seeped into their bones. Even the poorest were welcomed, given a basin to themselves on quiet days, and children carried the memory of such kindness deep into their grown lives. The city itself changed its habits with the season's turn. During winter, people spent more time indoors, and so the customs of cleaning home and hearth grew in importance. Dust and ash were swept out daily, floors scrubbed, and walls wiped down with vinegar or scented water. Neighbors gossiped over whose house was kept best and exchanged small secrets: how to banish lice with a wash of nettle tea, how to chase bugs from walls with camphor, how to coax a shine on pewter and copper. The very act of maintaining one's dwelling, of warding off the encroachments of cold and disease, was seen as the truest form of stewardship. Religious celebrations broke up the monotony and hard labor of winter. With Christmas approaching, the townspeople prepared for the great feast not simply by fasting or prayer, but with special attention to cleanliness. Children were carefully washed, hair oiled with a little precious almond. A fresh tunic, starched with boiled flour, was pressed for each member of the family. Isabeau's mother would insist that no one was to attend the church's midnight service with dirty hands or a soiled face, for so said the priests. One must present oneself before God as before a king, neat, clean, wholesome. Within the monastery walls, discipline in cleanliness set the pattern for the faithful beyond. On saints' days, the brothers and sisters took their communal bath in the hot room, the older ones helping the younger or infirm, their lavers filled and refilled, echoing with the slosh of water and the soft murmur of blessings. From their workrooms, they distributed soap to the needy, sometimes even opening their baths to orphaned children, with gentle hands and soft prayers for each. The plague, when it came again in Isabeau's middle years, brought silence and fear to the city. Custom and care were tested to their limits. Bathhouses, once places of comfort, closed on city order, scrubbed with vinegar, their doors sealed with waxen sigils. Yet even then, people clung to cleansing rituals, boiling water at home, washing hands and faces more often, burning bundles of herbs to sweeten the sick rooms. Isabeau herself walked the alleys to deliver small pots of soap, often left at doorsteps with just a hasty knock and fleeting prayer. Through these trials, it became evident to Isabeau that the habits inherited over generations offered not just cleanliness, but hope and a sense of control over a world often ruled by chaos and chance. The lines between life and death, health and suffering, were drawn as much by warm water and well-kept linens as by city walls and prayers. With spring's return, the rhythms softened. People emerged with baskets, woolen cloaks repaired, and bright again with careful scrubbing. Wash days along the river resumed with anticipation. Bright sheets fluttered in the wind. Sunlight touched faces and arms as if drawing the winter's heaviness from every bone. Children, now at ease, laughed and splashed. Mothers traded advice and courtesies. Isabeau's brothers played at chasing minnows, while she explained to a visiting neighbor how a new batch of soap, blended with dried rose petals, could keep the skin soft after a season of wind and work. Not all could afford the finer details or the effort. There were always outcasts, the unlucky, the ill, who slipped through the weave of town and family. Yet even they, when they found their way to Isabeau's door, were welcomed with warm water and a towel, for it was held that no one should be left to the cold and shame of neglect if there was anything a neighbor could do. By the time the city's trees burst into leaf, Isabeau found herself at the heart of a community, not preserved by accident, but by 1,000 interlaced acts of ordinary care. The world changed, newcomers bringing strange fashions or tales of far empires. But as she watched the bathhouse fill again with laughter, faces clean and spirits bright, she knew a truth woven through every season. That dignity grows where people cherish one another, not with grand gestures, but by the ritual kindness of clean towels, warm water, and open doors. As the years continued their steady turn, the city of Avignon shifted and grew. Children who had once splashed at the riverbank grew tall enough to haul water themselves, and the elders spent more evenings by the fire, telling stories of their youth of winters, when the river froze solid, and of summers dust thick, when even the dogs panted in the shade. Through every season's trial and triumph, the cycles of cleansing and care remained unbroken in small, essential ways. Isabeau saw the fruit of her family's quiet diligence. The bathhouse, now run largely by her younger brothers and sisters, had become not only a place for bodily renewal, but a heart for neighborhood comfort. New arrivals to the city came, some from lands at war or struck by famine, and found welcome in the same simple routines that had eased Isabeau's mind since childhood. A warm cloth to the hands, a bowl of hearty broth, the chance to shed the road's grime and sorrow with a few hours' peace. These things cost little, but lifted spirits in ways that no grand tapestry or jewel could hope to match. Markets blossomed in spring and autumn, and with them, the variety of scents and wares in Avignon only grew richer. Foreign traders from Naples and Florence brought fine soaps wrapped in cloth and knots of ambergris. Travelers from Moorish Spain sold little jars of orange blossom water and pouches of ground myrtle to sprinkle over floors. Isabeau learned 1,000 small tricks, folding some into her daily practice and passing others to friends. Neighbors compared recipes for herbal rinses and taught their daughters to weave rosemary and pennyroyal into garlands, not for mere prettiness, but for the quiet work they did against pests and the odors of dense city life. It was in the ordinary things that care and character were most clearly revealed. Margot, the candlemaker's daughter, won praise for her ingenious way of wrapping soaps in squares of linen dipped in beeswax, so the scent would last through the long months stored in chests or on shelves. The vintner's wife showed Isabeau how sour wine could be boiled and cooled for washing sores, and the old weaver taught the children to sew little muslin bags of marjoram and mint, which they tucked under pillows, soothing sleep and chasing away lice. Disasters still came, as they must in every age, but the habits rooted in care made their own kind of shield. When the river flooded, people gathered in the bathhouse to dry their feet and warm their bones. When fire swept a market lane, it was Isabeau's family who opened their doors to the smoke-befouled and frightened. Even when famine thinned the city's stores, the sharing of soap and water, of time and song, recalled to all what dignity could survive when fortunes failed. As Isabeau aged and her hair shot through with silver, she watched the next generation pick up the tools and rituals as naturally as breathing. Her niece, Elise, blended oils with dried orange peels for a new kind of soap, while her own son learned to fix broken benches and fashion new combs from horn. Always there was adaptation, new herbs for soap, new rules for waste in the growing city, new cures suggested by learned men, and old superstitions blending with knowledge from the apothecaries and friars. In the city, pride in orderliness was interwoven with its self-image. In guild halls, craftsmen competed to keep the cleanest workrooms, their apprentices decked in freshly washed smocks. Church processions wound through streets swept clean as honor demanded. At every threshold, from the grandest stone mansion to the most cramped back alley room, a little effort was made for the shared good. Water splashed down the steps, linens hung to air, herbs scattered on the floors. Courtly visitors, envoys, and bishops sometimes marveled at the ordinary cleanliness of Avignon. They reported home that townsfolk were not the ragged wretches of legend, but plump, bustling, and well-groomed, their homes neat, their children's hair shining even in the slums. Foreign chroniclers, seduced by tales of medieval gloom, sometimes scoffed at these comforts, preferring stories of lice and privation. But Isabeau knew, as her family did, and as every honest washerwoman, merchant, or monk could attest, that the world spun forward on the little acts, soap and water, bucket and broom, that kept despair at bay. Festivals still marked the seasons, and on such days, Isabeau's heart warmed at the sight of neighbors old and young, gathering fresh, clean, and shining in the feasting squares. In every hamlet and every home, the old rhythm endured. Brush out the dust, sweep up the ashes, rinse the feet, smooth the hair. The children of the bathhouse, now grown, led their own sons and daughters to the river's edge or through laughing doors for the familiar embrace of steam and warmth. And though fashions rolled on and the city's skyline changed, the essential truth never faded. The people of medieval Avignon and all the lands beyond took pride in order and in life, fighting off the world's darkness in their own bright, steady way, not with indifference or filth, but with the enduring power of care. In Isabeau's twilight years, she would sometimes sit by her window, breathing in the subtle fragrance of drying herbs her gnarled hands resting on her lap, and listened to the calls of her family from the busy street below. The air would be sweet with 100 efforts that no one saw. A towel hung to dry, a basin emptied, a song hummed as floors were swept. There, in the hush of evening, she found contentment in the small and sacred continuity of generations. The story of her life was not one of dirt and neglect, but a testament to the countless hands and hearts that made the city shine from within. And if one day her children's children were to be asked about the world of their ancestors, they would remember not the shadows of ignorance, but the gentleness of light. How dignity was carved from soap and water, and how beneath the swirl of legend and rumor, real people lived cleanly, loved deeply, and honored the daily miracle of being human. With every passing year, the world beyond Avignon's walls seemed to creep closer. Pilgrims on their way to Rome stopped at the bathhouse, grateful for the warmth after months on rough roads. Traders from the north spoke of innovations in distant towns. Stone-paved streets kept cleaner by city edict, public bathhouses with marble tiles and running water. Some of the city's older folk grumbled about new habits crowding out the old, but Isabeau simply watched with a quiet smile as her family learned and adapted. The little everyday rituals, washing hands before a meal, changing the rushes, hanging clothes high in the courtyard to capture the sun, became blended with new advice and discoveries. Physicians, now arriving from the universities of Montpellier and Salerno, lectured on the need for clean water and fresh air to keep plagues at bay. They brought tinctures and manuals, copying medical ideas from Arabic writers and older Greek and Roman books, now prized by noble patrons. Scholars debated openly about the best mixtures for healing wounds, competing with the grandmothers and village wise women who trusted in simple soap, boiled linen, and a prayer. Through all these changes, the bathhouse remained a sanctuary. On stormy nights, thunder rolling down from distant hills, mothers gathered their children for washing and lullabies in the soft glow of oil lamps. Elders came to ease their joints in steaming tubs, and young apprentices gossiped as they scrubbed mud and soot from their hands and faces. The evening's quiet broken only by laughter and the creak of the wooden doors. When the city held its grand processions, either to celebrate good harvest or pray for relief from pestilence, Isabeau and her kin observed with pride how even those who had but one tunic would find a way to wash and mend it for the day. Colourful banners fluttered from clean, bright windows. The air filled with the sweet smoke of burning herbs and the scent of rain-washed stone. News from other cities occasionally brought unsettling tales. In some places, authorities had closed public baths out of fear they spread sickness, ignorance, fear, and rumour travelling as fast as any merchant's cart. But in Avignon, the bathhouse's role in the community was too deeply woven to be undone by a single edict. Instead, rules tightened. Baths were cleaned with burning vinegar. Gatherings were limited during outbreaks. Families isolated the sick and relied on faith and careful practice. Isabeau ensured her attendants scrubbed every bench, every brush, every basin, turning each act of caution into a moment of calm and hope. There were years when fear ruled the city's heart, when the bells tolled too often and the doors of homes stayed closed. But in these moments, Isabeau's world of cleanliness took on even greater meaning. Neighbours left gifts of soap and bread on windowsills for the grieving. The songs that echoed through the bathhouse became lower, more gentle, a comfort to those who had lost. Babies were still born, children still grew, and every mark of care, a clean cheek, a braided lock of hair, a sweet-smelling sheet, was a small defiance against despair. With the passing of the harshest seasons, the breath of spring felt miraculous. Women gathered in the squares, brushing hair in the sunlight, sharing new stories and old remedies for the ills of winter. The rhythms of repair and renewal scraping old soot from the hearth, laying fresh rushes, washing out the family's best tunics, created a spell against bitterness, inviting the blessings of fortune. Time, however, did what it always does. Years slipped by, softness crept into the edges of things. Isabeau taught her grandnieces and nephews the craft of lye soap, of boiling nettles for itchy skin, of scattering dried thyme under pillows to chase nightmares. Each lesson was another thread in the web of memory, tying generations, not just in blood, but in reverent daily habit. On spring, with the white blossoms fluttering onto Avignon's roofs, Isabeau sat in the bathhouse garden, her knees wrapped in a warm rag, her lap holding a basket of fresh rushes, and listened as her descendants planned the week's cleaning. Their voices, busy and bright, rose against the air, and in each sound she heard the voices of her parents, her siblings lost to time, and of her own childhood in this city, when every act had seemed a little miracle. She realized in that luminous dusk how little the root of things had changed. Fates bent one way and another. Wars drew near and then withdrew. Fashions swept through. Streets widened. New bridges rose. But beneath it all, people cared for one another as they always had, in quiet, essential gestures, in the cyclical rebirth of water, soap, and warmth. And if the day's scholars or future minstrels wished to make tales of a dirty and ignorant Middle Ages, Isabeau knew that those who truly remembered, the bathkeepers, the mothers, the monks who tended lavers, the children whose laughter washed down the lanes, would tell a different story. It was a story of effort and ingenuity, humility and devotion, in which cleanliness was not just a matter of surface, but the ritual heart of ordinary hope and dignity. As the stars glittered that evening, Avignon lay quiet beneath them, each household brimming with the soft promise of another day, another chance for hands and hearts to do their small work of caring for themselves, their families, and the world around them. And Isabeau, weary but unbowed, felt gratitude for every moment she had labored in the name of cleanliness, every life she had touched with a clean towel, every generation she had helped carry safely and honorably through the bright and shadowed centuries. As the years slipped by, the world continued to shift around Isabeau and her family, though the essentials of daily care endured untouched by the tides of politics and distant wars. Kings were crowned and lost, new banners fluttered over city gates, and rumors rolled through Avignon of faraway lands where, some said, streets were paved with stone and fountains ran clear through every noble's garden. Yet behind every grand change, the gentle rhythm of order persisted: soap, water, sun, laughter. The bathhouse now passed into the eager hands of Isabeau's grandniece Elise, filled each morning with the same blend of voices, scents, and steam. Elise was full of new ideas gleaned from travelers and apothecaries. She mixed water with slivers of pine resin for especially soiled hands, traded market cheese for a handful of dried lavender from Catalan peddlers, and began experimenting with softer cloths made from linen and spun with a touch of silk. Her measures were small but felt, harnessing old wisdom with whatever new tools time offered. Yet it was not just innovation that defined Elise's stewardship. It was the same patient commitment that had shaped the bathhouse for decades. Old Pierre, now stooped and slow, assisted the apprentices in cleaning the tubs, always muttering the same cautions Isabeau had taught. No corners missed, no towels left damp, for it is the things you do not see that breed trouble. Young mothers, once uncertain, grew confident under Elise's gentle instruction, learning again what their own mothers and grandmothers had known about scrubbing, scalding, and sunning away the filth that gathered at the fringes of city life. Outside, the world was changing in other ways, but even the priests took note of how the city's soul seemed tied to the daily pursuit of cleanliness. The church remained a beacon for rituals of spirit and body alike. Major holidays marked moments when families redoubled their efforts. Children lovingly washed before the Easter Mass. Elders soaked their aches away before the All Saints procession, and neighbors exchanged gifts of soap or fragrant sachets in the dark depths of winter. Sometimes, when Elise stepped into the stillness before dawn or after the last bath of the day, she would find herself thinking of the stories preserved in the hands and habit rather than in books. Generations of laughter, of secrets confided over buckets and basins, of grief soothed in a hot bath, seemed to rise with the steam, making the walls shimmer, not with legend, but with simple, lasting truth. Sickness continued to threaten from time to time, as it did everywhere. There were sour years when the city seemed quiet and subdued, its lanes empty as fearful families kept to their rooms. But again, the old routines helped. Wounds were cleaned with boiled water and wine, sleeping quarters kept scrupulously neat, and the bathhouse became both a sanctuary and a sentry post. Elise sent word throughout the quarter during plague or fever that her doors remained open. Those in need would always find a pot of lye soap, warm towels, and, most precious of all, a little company and hope. The city itself had grown clever with time. Water was channeled with new pipes and gutters so that the worst floods were tamed. Authorities borrowed methods from far cities and old Roman plans, improving drainage and beginning to fine those who left filth on public streets or near the wells. Washerwomen, once viewed simply as laborers, were recognized for the skill and discipline required in their trade. Guilds formed around both soap-making and laundering, establishing standards no less proud than those of the masons or carpenters. As Elise watched the order of things settle in again, she found comfort in the company of friends and family whose trust in routine never faltered. Neighbors gathered for shared wash days, their laughter carrying through the alleys like birdsong. Children splashed in the shallows of the river, competing to make the cleanest shirt flutter in the wind, or inventing silly songs about the virtues of basins and brooms. Evenings ended in the kind of fatigue that makes for easy sleep, the gentle warmth of herbs and the glow of freshly scrubbed cheeks and hands soothing away the cares of the world outside. Sometimes, travelers' tutors escorting noble children, merchants from the north, or foreign pilgrims would pause to marvel at the order and gentleness of Avignon's customs. They expected filth and were startled by neatness. Some had heard tales that the ages of faith cared little for comfort or health. But a few weeks among Isabeau's kin and their neighbors showed the deeper truth, that each home, however humble or grand, was shaped by the same careful pulse. that cleanliness was neither decadence nor extravagance, but simply how people lived with care and pride. By now, stories of the past centuries of plagues, wars, and hard winters grew softer in memory, transformed from sources of complaint into lessons and reminders. Isabeau, in her final years, felt peace in the legacy she left behind. A city a little cleaner, a family bound by ritual, a gentle, unbroken chain of daily kindnesses that rejoiced quietly with every sweep and wash. As the next dawn broke over Avignon, setting fire